Imagine discovering a valley so dangerous that men entered searching for gold and never returned, a place where explorers vanished without a trace, where bodies were discovered under circumstances so horrifying that newspapers across Canada couldn't stop talking about them. Deep in the wilderness of Canada's Northwest Territories lies a place known as the Valley of the Headless Men. More than a century later, nobody knows exactly what happened there. Was it murder? Was it greed? Or does this remote valley still hide a secret no one has uncovered? Tonight, we're traveling into one of the darkest mysteries in Canadian history. To understand the mystery, we first need to visit one of the most isolated places on Earth. Before we can understand the mystery of the Valley of the Headless Men, we need to understand the place where it happened. Because this wasn't just any valley. It was one of the most remote and unforgiving wilderness regions on Earth. Deep within Canada's Northwest Territories flows the South Nahanni River, a wild and powerful waterway that cuts through towering mountains, dense forests, and some of the most rugged terrain in North America. Even today, reaching this region requires careful planning. But in the early 1900s, entering the Nahanni wilderness was like stepping into another world. There were no roads, no cell phones, no emergency rescue teams, and certainly no quick way out. Anyone who ventured into the valley was completely on their own. The landscape itself seemed designed to keep people away. Massive canyons carved through ancient rock walls hundreds of feet high. Violent rapids could destroy a canoe in seconds. Thick forests stretched endlessly in every direction. And during winter, temperatures could plunge far below freezing, turning the wilderness into a frozen trap. For the Indigenous Dene people who had lived in the region for generations, the land commanded deep respect. They knew its dangers. They understood its power. And many stories warned outsiders not to underestimate what waited beyond the mountains. Yet despite its deadly reputation, the Nahanni region held something that proved impossible for many adventurers to resist: gold. In the late 19th century, stories of incredible gold discoveries spread across North America. The Klondike Gold Rush had transformed ordinary men into millionaires almost overnight. Thousands abandoned their homes and families, chasing dreams of unimaginable wealth. Among prospectors, rumors began circulating about the Nahanni Valley. Whispers spoke of rich gold deposits hidden deep within the wilderness. Some claimed entire streams glittered with gold. Others believed a fortune lay buried somewhere beyond the mountains. No one knew whether the stories were true, but that hardly mattered. Because wherever there was even a chance of gold, men were willing to risk everything. Soon, prospectors, trappers, and fortune hunters began making dangerous journeys into the valley. Many hoped to become rich. Some hoped to make history. But few realized they were walking into a mystery that would survive for more than a century. And among those drawn by the promise of hidden treasure were two brothers whose names would become forever linked to the legend of the Valley of the Headless Men. Their names were Frank McLeod and Willie McLeod, and their journey into the Nahanni wilderness would become the beginning of Canada's darkest mystery. Like thousands of other prospectors during the Gold Rush era, Frank and Willie McLeod believed their fortunes were waiting somewhere beyond the mountains. But what started as a dream of wealth would soon become a nightmare that no one could explain. By the early 1900s, stories of hidden riches were spreading across North America like wildfire. Every newspaper seemed to carry tales of lucky prospectors striking gold and becoming wealthy almost overnight. The Klondike Gold Rush had already captured the world's imagination, turning ordinary laborers into legends. For many men, the message was simple: somewhere out there, a fortune was waiting. All you had to do was find it. Among those captivated by these dreams were two brothers from Canada, Frank McLeod and Willie McLeod. Like countless prospectors of their time, the McLeod brothers were willing to endure hardship, danger, and uncertainty for the chance of discovering gold. When rumors began circulating about rich deposits hidden deep within the Nahanni wilderness, the brothers paid close attention. The stories sounded almost unbelievable. Prospectors whispered about streams containing traces of gold. Others claimed entire fortunes lay hidden somewhere in the mountains. No one could provide proof. Yet the rumors refused to die. To Frank and Willie, the possibility was enough. The brothers decided to venture into one of the most dangerous regions in North America. It would be a journey few people dared to attempt. Gathering supplies, equipment, and provisions, they prepared for a long expedition into the remote wilderness of the Northwest Territories. Everything they carried had to serve a purpose: food, tools, weapons, mining equipment. Once they entered the Nahanni region, there would be no stores, no towns, and no easy way to return if something went wrong. Every decision could mean the difference between survival and death. Still, the brothers remained optimistic. Like many prospectors before them, they imagined what success might look like. Perhaps they would discover a rich gold deposit. Perhaps they would become wealthy. Perhaps their names would be remembered as the men who found one of Canada's greatest treasures. As they traveled deeper into the wilderness, civilization slowly disappeared behind them. The forests grew thicker. The mountains grew larger. The river carried them farther from the outside world. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Yet Frank and Willie pressed forward. Some reports suggest the brothers were encouraged by signs that gold might actually exist in the region. If true, their excitement must have grown with every passing day. But then something strange happened. The brothers stopped communicating. No messages arrived. No reports came back from the wilderness. No one knew exactly where they were at first. Nobody was alarmed. Long periods of silence were common among prospectors working in remote areas. But as more time passed, concern began to grow. Friends and family waited for news. Then they waited some more. Still nothing. The McLeod brothers had seemingly vanished into one of the most isolated wilderness regions on Earth, and nobody knew why. Had they discovered the gold they were searching for? Had they become lost in the vast wilderness? Or had something far more sinister happened deep within the Nahanni Valley? Years would pass before anyone learned the truth. And when the discovery finally came, it would shock Canada and give birth to a legend that still survives today. The mystery of the Valley of the Headless Men was about to begin. As the years passed, hope of finding Frank and Willie McLeod alive began to fade. Then a search party entered the Nahanni wilderness, and what they discovered would become one of the most chilling finds in Canadian history. Years passed without any sign of Frank and Willie McLeod. As time went on, many assumed the brothers had simply become another tragic story of the northern wilderness. Then came a shocking discovery. A search party exploring the Nahanni region stumbled upon evidence of the missing prospectors. Near an old campsite, human skeletal remains were found. The remains were believed to belong to Frank and Willie McLeod. But what truly captured public attention was a disturbing detail reported by newspapers at the time. According to the reports, the skeletons were found without their heads. The story spread quickly across Canada. Newspapers printed sensational headlines. Readers were horrified. How had the brothers died? Who, or what, had removed their heads? No one could provide a clear answer. The remote location made a proper investigation extremely difficult. Evidence was limited. Witnesses were non-existent. And the harsh wilderness had already erased many clues. Soon, rumors began spreading. Some believed the brothers had been murdered by rival prospectors. Others suspected they had discovered a rich gold deposit and were killed for its location. With every retelling, the story became even more mysterious. The Nahanni wilderness was no longer known simply as a dangerous place. It now had a terrifying new reputation. People began calling it the Valley of the Headless Men. But the mystery was far from over. Because the McLeod brothers would not be the last people connected to strange deaths in the valley. In the years that followed, even more unsettling cases would emerge. If the McLeod brothers had been the only victims, the mystery might have faded into history. But over the next several decades, other prospectors would enter the Nahanni wilderness, and some would never return. The discovery of Frank and Willie McLeod shocked Canada, but what made the story truly terrifying was what happened afterward. The Nahanni wilderness seemed to attract more tragedy, and with each new incident, the legend of the Valley of the Headless Men grew darker. One of the most famous cases involved a prospector named Martin Jorgensen. Like the McLeod brothers before him, Jorgensen traveled into the Nahanni region hoping to strike it rich. For a time, everything appeared normal. Then, without warning, he disappeared. Later, searchers found his cabin burned to the ground. Nearby, they discovered human remains believed to be Martin Jorgensen. What had happened? Had he been attacked? Had someone set the cabin on fire, or had a simple accident turned deadly? No one could say for certain. As the years passed, reports of other disappearances and unexplained deaths continued to emerge from the region. Prospectors vanished. Trappers went missing. Explorers entered the wilderness and were never seen again. Some of these stories were well documented. Others became part of local folklore, passed from one generation to the next. The result was the same: fear. People began to view the Nahanni Valley as a cursed place, a place where something always seemed to go wrong. Yet strangely, the stories did not keep everyone away. In fact, for some adventurers, the mystery only made the valley more attractive. Because many believed there was a reason so many people were risking their lives to enter the wilderness. A reason buried somewhere among the mountains, rivers, and forests: gold. Rumors began spreading that the McLeod brothers may have discovered a rich gold deposit before they died. And if that was true, then somewhere in the Nahanni wilderness, a fortune might still be waiting to be found. That rumor would give birth to one of Canada's greatest treasure legends, the Lost McLeod Mine. What if Frank and Willie McLeod had actually found the gold they were searching for? And what if their deaths were connected to a secret worth killing for? The search for the Lost McLeod Mine would consume treasure hunters for decades. As the story of the McLeod brothers spread across Canada, a new theory began to take shape. What if Frank and Willie McLeod had actually succeeded? What if they had found the gold they were searching for? Many believed the brothers had discovered a rich gold deposit somewhere deep within the Nahanni wilderness before their deaths. According to the rumors, they had uncovered a mine so valuable that it could make a man wealthy beyond imagination. But if the brothers had found such a treasure, one question remained. Where was it? No maps were ever recovered. No official records revealed its location. And if the mine existed, it seemed to have vanished along with the men who discovered it. Soon, treasure hunters from across Canada became fascinated by the legend. Year after year, prospectors entered the Nahanni region hopping to find the lost mine. Some spent months searching. Others devoted years of their lives to the quest. They followed old trails, explored hidden valleys, and searched remote mountain passes for any sign of gold. But despite countless expeditions, no one could prove the Lost McLeod Mine actually existed. Still, the legend refused to die. For believers, the mystery seemed too perfect to ignore. Two prospectors disappear. A fortune in gold is rumored to exist, and no one ever finds the treasure. Some even suggested a darker possibility. What if someone else had learned about the mine? What if Frank and Willie McLeod were murdered to keep its location a secret? There was no evidence to support the theory. But in a place already surrounded by mystery, it was enough to keep the rumors alive. More than a century later, treasure hunters are still fascinated by the story. And somewhere in the vast wilderness of the Nahanni Valley, the secret of the Lost McLeod Mine may still be waiting to be discovered. Or perhaps it never existed at all. But treasure hunters weren't the only ones with stories about the Nahanni wilderness. Long before prospectors arrived, Indigenous communities spoke of a mysterious people said to have once lived among these mountains, a group known as the Nahanni. Their legends would add another chilling layer to the mystery of the Valley of the Headless Men. Long before gold prospectors entered the Nahanni wilderness, the Dene people had their own stories about the region. Among the most intriguing were legends about a mysterious group known as the Nahanni. According to Dene oral traditions, the Nahanni were fierce mountain warriors who lived in the rugged peaks surrounding the Nahanni Valley. They were said to be powerful fighters who appeared suddenly, carried out raids, and then disappeared back into the mountains. Because they seemed to come from nowhere and vanish without a trace, they became figures of both fear and mystery. What makes the story even more fascinating is that, at some point, the Nahanni themselves disappeared from history. No one knows exactly what happened to them. Some historians believe they may have merged with other indigenous groups over time. Others think the stories became exaggerated through generations of retelling. Whatever the truth may be, the disappearance of the Naha only added to the mystery surrounding the valley. As news of the McLeod brothers and other strange deaths spread, many people began connecting these old legends to the modern stories. Some wondered if the valley still held secrets linked to the mysterious mountain warriors. Others believed the stories were simply folklore that had become mixed with real historical events. There is no evidence connecting the Naha to the deaths and disappearances in Nahanni. But the legends helped transform the valley into something more than just a wilderness. It became a place where history, mystery, and imagination collided. And as the years passed, countless theories emerged to explain what had really happened in the Valley of the Headless Men. Some were reasonable, others were far more frightening. But which theory comes closest to the truth? That question remains unanswered even today. After more than a century of speculation, investigators, historians, and explorers have proposed several explanations for the Valley of the Headless Men. Some point to greed, others blame the unforgiving wilderness, and some believe the truth may be far more complicated than anyone realizes. More than a century after the deaths of Frank and Willie McLeod, the mystery of the Valley of the Headless Men remains unsolved. But over the years, several theories have emerged. The first and perhaps most popular theory is murder. The Nahanni region attracted prospectors from all walks of life, many driven by dreams of wealth. If the McLeod brothers had discovered a valuable gold deposit, it is possible that someone wanted the secret for themselves. Supporters of this theory believe greed may have led to violence. However, there is one problem. No evidence has ever been found proving that the brothers were murdered. Another theory points to the wilderness itself. The Nahanni Valley is one of the most dangerous environments in Canada. Freezing temperatures, rugged mountains, powerful rivers, starvation, and wildlife have claimed countless lives over the years. Some historians believe natural causes may explain many of the deaths and disappearances associated with the valley. Then there is the theory of exaggeration. In the early 1900s, newspapers often sensationalized dramatic stories to attract readers. As reports spread across the country, details may have been exaggerated, misunderstood, or repeated so many times that fact became mixed with legend. Could the Valley of the Headless Men be partly a creation of newspaper headlines and public imagination? The truth is, nobody knows for certain. The evidence is limited. The witnesses are long gone, and many of the events took place in one of the most remote wilderness regions on Earth. What remains today is a mystery suspended between history and legend, a story that has fascinated people for generations. And despite decades of investigation, the Valley of the Headless Men continues to guard its secrets. Perhaps the real answer is hidden somewhere among the mountains and rivers of Nahanni. Or perhaps it was lost forever with the men who entered the valley searching for gold. Today, the Nahanni Valley is no longer a remote frontier visited only by prospectors and trappers. Yet even as tourists explore its breathtaking landscapes, the mystery of the Valley of the Headless Men continues to cast a shadow over one of Canada's most remarkable wilderness regions. Today, the Nahanni region is very different from the wilderness that Frank and Willie McLeod entered more than a century ago. The area is now protected as part of the UNESCO-listed Nahanni National Park Reserve. Visitors come from around the world to witness its breathtaking beauty. They explore the South Nahanni River. They admire the towering canyons. They stand in awe before Virginia Falls, one of the largest waterfalls in North America. At first glance, it seems peaceful, a place of natural wonder, a place untouched by time. Yet beneath its beauty lies a story that refuses to disappear. The mystery of the Valley of the Headless Men continues to captivate historians, explorers, treasure hunters, and curious travelers alike. People still debate what happened to Frank and Willie McLeod. Some believe they were victims of murder. Others blame the unforgiving wilderness. And some remain convinced that a lost fortune in gold is still hidden somewhere among the mountains. Despite decades of searching, no one has ever found definitive answers. No one has discovered the Lost McLeod Mine. And no one has fully explained the strange events that gave the valley its infamous name. Perhaps the truth is still out there. hidden deep within the vast wilderness of Nahanni, waiting for someone to uncover it. Or perhaps some mysteries are never meant to be solved. More than 100 years after the McLeod brothers disappeared into the wilderness, their story continues to echo through the mountains and rivers of northern Canada. A reminder that even in the modern world, there are still places where history, legend, and mystery become impossible to separate. And that is why the Valley of the Headless Men remains one of Canada's darkest and most enduring mysteries. So what do you think happened? Were the deaths the result of greed and violence? Did the wilderness claim its victims? Or is there another explanation that has yet to be discovered? Let us know your theory in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries, be sure to subscribe for more stories that continue to puzzle the world to this day. Because sometimes, the most fascinating mysteries are the ones that never reveal their secrets. Somewhere beyond these mountains, the truth may still be waiting, and until it is found, the legend of the Valley of the Headless Men will live on.